What a blessing indeed to be here. And I don't know about you, but I felt especially blessed this week because I got to go home and visit family for Christmas. I came home, I bet a lot of you did, with a lot more things that you were counting as blessings this week. Yep. I don't know about you, but I know my closets were already full before Christmas came along. Yep. And the funny thing about it all is, right, there's those gifts we really want, the ones that were on our list, and the ones that, well, maybe someone gave us against their own better judgment. Or at least it should have been. So I learned something, though, about those dubious gifts this week. Recently, actually, it wasn't last week, it was a couple weeks ago, I was at an office Christmas party. And I want to be clear that this was a Christmas party that was not intended to give, like, the finest Tiffany crystal, okay? Dubious gifts were the name of the game, but I did not realize that they were so powerfully worth keeping. You see, I thought these were the sort of things that you laughed about and you got rid of. And to protect both myself and the giver, I won't tell you what the dubious gift was, but I imagine you've seen a few of these in your life. So it was funny, though, because in the candor of the moment, he opened it up and he looked at it and he said, well, yeah, I don't really need this, but you know what? I've got a place just for it. You see, he had a special shelf dedicated in his garage to those gifts that he had received that he was planning on giving away next year. The regifting, yes. He did. And I just kind of looked at it and I said, why? Doesn't this have to stop somewhere? Because that's a lot of holding. That's a lot of holding. Having special dedicated space in your life for things that you don't need or want, but that you're going to be passing on. But the truth of the matter is, as much as I kind of laugh at it, I know most of us, myself included, do this sometimes. We hold on to the things that we don't need or want. We hold on to the things that we wanted and even used, but whose day is come and gone. The things that once served us and just take up space in our closets anymore. And what I know about this is that my closet and our closets are a lot like our lives. And I know that there's some of you gentlemen in this room here who are thinking, oh, he's talking about closets. He's talking about my wife's clothes. Let me be clear, it could be your garage too. That workshop, attic, they fill up easily too. I am not speaking only about clothes here. But what I know is that the more stuff that we have, the more space that we take up with these things that aren't serving us anymore, the less space we have to be really present and alive to who we are, to who God's calling us to be. Because we end up spending our time and energy, instead of recognizing the blessings and the glory, we spend our time instead sorting through the stuff, instead of just getting rid of the things that are getting in the way. I was really inspired, actually, this past week by my dad. He's 70 now, and he retired a few years ago, and he's been going through and he's been cleaning out his closet and his workshop, and he's been really making some changes in his lives. I was up in Kansas visiting family for Christmas, and so I ended up helping him take about 2 tons worth of stuff. And I know how much because the landfill charges by the ton, okay? 2 tons. Now you got to understand, though, some of this was heavy stuff. So here's the deal. My dad, he was a musical instrument repairman for a long time, and so he had this big shop full of things. And so one of the things we had to get rid of, it had been sitting there since about 1982. It was an old upright piano that was so valuable that it was free when he originally got it. It had actually had pieces of it cut off so it would fit into someone's apartment. This was not the finest piece of equipment ever. But he had gotten it back in the early 80s when I was still a small child, and he thought he was going to rebuild it. And it hadn't happened yet. And it wasn't just that. He had these other things. And in the course of fixing instruments, you want your tubas and your trumpets and your trombones to be shiny. So he had decided he was going to build this degreaser. He had gone to refrigeration repairman school back in the early 70s, and he could buy a degreaser, but it required running water, and his shop didn't have running water to cool it, and so he was going to build one, which was a great idea, but it just never quite came through. So for all my life, all I'd known was there was this giant kind of crazy piece of metal in his shop. It was big, too. It was bigger than me. It was a huge piece of equipment, and it had just been sitting there since, well, the early 80s. And so I was helping him, my mom and we got some boards out, and we loaded it all up into the back of his Ranger pickup, and you know how it is when you're the child, right? I got to sit in the little jump seat in the back of that Ranger as we drove to the local landfill. It was a little tight, but we got it all there. And so it was really cool. It was really cool to get to see my dad and to get to see him getting rid of these things in his life that maybe were part of his life at one time, but weren't serving him anymore. He's been retired a few years now, and he's had a chance to finish up some projects and to really start thinking about who does he want to be in this next phase of his life. And it's really, really fun and really neat to be able to get to be a part of that and to really help my dad out. But I will admit I was more than a little chagrined when I was helping him move some of these things out, and I looked around and I realized I was still also storing some things at his shop. So it got me thinking about this whole thing, about cleaning out our closets, about getting rid of the stuff that's standing in our way, that's keeping us from moving on. Let it go. Let it go. And it's a great time of year to be getting rid of that stuff, right? Because it's New Year's. Not only did a lot of us just get new presents and things over Christmas, and we got to find space in our already overcrowded closets, if yours are like mine, to put things in. But it's also that time where we start thinking about who do we want to be in this year? Who do we want to be in 2013? What do we need to let go of? What do we need to cast off? Making those New Year's resolutions. Maybe tomorrow night you'll be joining us in Bishop, and we'll be talking about New Year and New You, starting at 10, or maybe you just need some quiet space to really think through and rest in the moment and rest in God's presence. And you can come at 9 and join us for a contemplative service in the chapel. Rick and I will be doing that. Or join Barbara, Reverend Barbara, and Jared Tyler and Linda Jacobs and thinking about new year and new ground. But anytime we want to open up new ground, we have to get rid of the stuff that's in the way. So I've been reading about all of this week and reading about cleaning out closets, and I learned that there is actually a whole professional class of people. You can become a board-certified professional organizer. I did not know. And they will come and they will help you clean out the closets in your life to help you live more fully by getting rid of the things that are getting in the way. And I was really struck by what they said, because they said you need to do 4 things to clean out your closet successfully. You need a plan. You need a place. You need a partner. And you need a passion for who you're becoming and what you're doing. Otherwise, it's just work. It's just drudgery. But that passion changes it all. And I want to go down this list because I know that in my life, at least, one of the major problems that comes with these disorganized, overstuffed closets is they sort of feed on themselves. And although I am not, I want to be clear, I have my problems, but I am not yet a candidate for that hoarder show on A&E. And I hope I never will be. I know that I let stuff accumulate in my life, and it keeps me from living more fully and from thriving. So what was that first thing? We said you needed a plan. Now, I used to be in government, so I know what plans look like. They're 3-ring binders gathering dust on a shelf. It's not what I'm talking about. It can be really simple. Take clothes, for example. Let's just go back to that closet, those clothes. There's this professional organizer. She wrote a book. Her name is Jill Martin. And she has her clients use a 4-pile system. Trash, keep, donate, and my personal favorite, maybe. That's sort of the biggest pile in my life. So the plan is this. You go through your closet or wherever it is, and you find the things that are broken, the things that are worn out, the things that have holes in them, things that you're never going to be used again, not just by you, but nobody's going to use them. This is not the time to let your inner repairman or seamstress come out, okay? This is not that time. If you are not actually going to fix that, if you are not actually going to use it, it's time to throw it away. Let it go. Let it go. And it's not just about clothes either, right? I mean, I bet some of y'all still have some of those 3.5-inch floppy disks from Windows 3.0 backup you got floating on your desk. Yeah, I see some heads nodding. Mm-hmm. You know, computers don't even have floppy drives anymore, right? Just in case. Just in case. So you throw it away. You throw it away. Let it go. And then you work on that donate pile, right? You take those things, and they're fine. They're still in good shape, but you know you're never going to wear them again if you, in fact, ever did. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was for that event that you thought you were going to get to someday that never came. Maybe it was that dubious gift from Grandma that made you start wondering if it was time to have the conversation with her. Whatever it was, if you're not going to wear it, if it doesn't suit you, if it doesn't fit your life, you throw it in the donate pile. And then you're down to 2 piles. You got the keep pile, and you got the maybe pile. And I know which one's bigger. That maybe pile, it's tricky. But though you've reduced this amount of space that's being taken up in your life. And that's valuable space. I didn't realize this, but I have a friend who works in the building trades, and he pointed out that for every square foot of space that you occupy, you have paid $100. It costs $100 a square foot to build space. Or maybe you're renting at the local self-storage place, I don't know. But whatever it is, it costs you money to keep those things in your life. So you haven't just freed up space. You've freed up a whole lot more in your life. It takes up less space, and you've got these 2 piles, this keep and maybe pile, and it's real simple. You go through, and if it's clothes, you put it on. Does it fit? Does it look good? Are you going to wear it? If it does, you keep it. And otherwise, you move it to the donate pile. It's not a complicated plan, but it's a plan, and that's the point. You've got to have a plan. It doesn't have to be a big, huge 3-ring binder. It just needs to be a plan. Helps you to know what you're doing at each step. Helps you know if you're getting where you're going. But what I know is that in this part of the process, I get caught up. Because it's not just one closet that's overflowing. It's all of them. So as we get geared up for our New Year's resolutions, a lot of us make this mistake of taking on too much all at once. We're going to change everything. Everything. So we get all geared up and we're like, I'm going to clean out all my closets. But then you don't have space because now you got piles all over the place and you can't work with that. You need a place to work. We need a place to work, a place to put things while we sort through them. That's step 2. It's a place. And if you're already crowded out, this is often the most difficult part because you got to find a place to put those things while you sort them. So you go back to step 1. What was the first pile that you went to? The trash. That's right. Once you've cleared that out, you've got a little more space to work with. Use that dumpster. And if you need to, you can use some other space on a temporary basis, but I warn you, if you use your bed as that temporary space, you still got to sleep tonight. So whatever works. But don't get stuck by not having a place not to work. Have a place. And getting stuck is really easy. I've moved a lot in the last few years, and what I've noticed is that it takes a lot more time and effort and energy for me to move my stuff than for someone else to. And it is not only because I'm a little more concerned about whether my china breaks or not. It's because for me, all of those things have stories that are attached to them. They have memories. Maybe you have them too. You got the really neat outfit that you got to go on your honeymoon. Or the trinkets that you collected with your kids on that last trip before they went off to college. Right? And so you pick it up, and all of a sudden you get drawn into the story. And it slows you down. It's like the old letters and the old pictures, and you're going through them, and it's beautiful, and it's memories. But if you really want to clean out your closet, it's going to trap you right there. Which is why you need step 3. You need a partner. Your partner is sort of your professional mover in residence. So they help you get unstuck. They help you go through and look at that box of yarn that was you purchased for that knitting project 9 years ago. You were going to make a scarf for your friend, and you've still got it. And they just get to look at you and go, honey, come on, pack it up. And I know it works too, because I know that in my life and in my household, it is a lot easier to get rid of things that are not my own. Yes, oh, my children have all kinds of things to get rid of, but my stuff, that's important. So that partner helps prod you along. They help you move and keep going. But if you don't have passion, if you don't have a passion, if you don't have something that you're working towards, it's not just a clean closet, but it's a vision of how you're going to let more life come through, how you're going to let God be more in your life because you're spending less time on this stuff. Passion for who you're becoming. The rest of it doesn't work. There's this theologian and minister named Howard Thurman. He was the founder of a church out in San Francisco called the Fellowship for All Peoples. It was the first intentionally interracial church in the country. And he said something that stuck with me. He says, don't ask what the world needs. He said, ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who come alive. People who come alive. I told you earlier that Jill Martin had come up with this 4-pile system for cleaning out closets, but I want you to know she's figured something else out too. And it's related to this passion piece and this coming alive piece. And it's about choice. You see, cleaning out our closets actually helps us become more alive. I don't know if you've been following it, but over the last decade or so, they've done a whole lot of research on choice. People talk about choice as though it's always a good thing. The more choices you have, the more options you have, the better things are. But actually what we find out is that people are debilitated by too much choice. If you've got too many options, you have to think through all of them. And you can't do it. It slows you down. They do these studies. They'll take a little table, you know those sample tables at the grocery store? And they set it up and they put 3 different kinds of jelly out on the table and they give out samples. And then the store sells jelly. Sales go way up for that day. They come back the very next day, same grocery store, same neighborhood, same table. This time they put 20 jars of jelly on it, and all anyone feels is overwhelmed. So this clutter in our life, it works in just that way. But cleaning out our closets helps us to live more passionately, because we're spending less time making these decisions about the things that really could have just been let go. Because we're not spending time looking through them, trying to dig through our closets and find those things that are buried, that are hidden and forgotten, those pieces that could help us. And our passion is released from this problem of sifting through the clutter. And so if you're excited, the first thing you can do then is you can eliminate these things that are getting in your way. And your passion helps you come alive. Now, as I was thinking about this, I remembered there's a story. There's a story in the Gospels about this. It's actually in all 3 Gospels, and I wanted to read it with you. It's a famous story. It's about Jesus, and he was on his way. He was on a journey. It's in Mark. It's also in Matthew and Luke. In Mark, it's at 10:17. He says, the story goes this way. It says, as he was setting out on a journey, a man ran up and knelt before him and asked him, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good but God alone. You know the commandments. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. You shall not defraud. Honor your mother and your father." He said to him, "Teacher, I have kept all of these since my youth." Jesus, looking at him, loved him and said, "You lack one thing. Sell what you own, give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." When he heard this, he was shocked and went away grieving, for he had many possessions. Now, I'm not about to tell you you have to get rid of everything. But when I read that story, I'm reminded that that stuff, those possessions, were getting in the man's way. He was so attached to what he owned that he couldn't see how it was getting in the way. He lived a good life, but he knew something was missing or he wouldn't have asked the question. He knew that he hadn't committed adultery and that he wasn't stealing and defrauding, but still he felt something missing. And when he was confronted with the way that his attachment to his things kept him from being in relationship with God, relationship with his neighbors, all he could hear was, I can't do it. It's too much. But you don't have to give up everything, right? You got to have a house, you got to have clothes, you got to get to work in the morning. It's not about giving up everything, it's about giving up the things in our lives which are getting in the way. The things that are keeping us from God. And that's why this all matters. Because we need in our life a chance to clear away the overgrowth. You know, I grew up in the Flint Hills north of here, and every year we burn off in the spring the old growth so the new grass can come up. You got to get rid of it. Because we're given this life, we're given this day, and unlike those Christmas gifts of dubious quality, our days do not come with gift receipts to be returned when they don't work out. And so we have to make this decision. Are we going to spend our time and energy tending to those things that no longer serve us? Or are we going to let them go? Our closets, our garages, our personal self-storage units, wherever it is that you're keeping stuff, needs a looking over from time to time. Now, I want to be clear. I am not telling you, get rid of everything. I'm just saying, go through it from time to time. Sometimes you need more than one pair of shoes. You know, a set of black flats doesn't go with every outfit. And the gentleman out there, I know you've got more than one hammer in your toolbox. But if you're framing a building, it's a different hammer than if you're putting up a picture. Those things are serving you. They're used in your life. They're part of your life. They're helping you. Keep them. But the things that aren't serving you well, the things that are taking up space at best, and at worst are preventing you from living your life fully, those are the things that we have to get rid of. And for most of us, it is so much easier to get things than to get rid of them. Especially those things that were given in a relationship where there's a story and there's a connection. It's personal. It's not just about our clothes or those books that we're never going to read again. It's the things that come out of our relationships and our identity with ourselves. That's why I was so impressed and so touched by my dad, because what he was saying is, this is who I thought I was. This is who I was, in fact. But it's not who I am now. For most of us, our parents are a real gift, a real blessing. I know it's not true for everyone, but for most of us, our parents are real blessings. And they give us these powerful lessons in how to live our lives. But those lessons were inculcated into them. They were brought into their lives at a different time than we live in now. And so those skills and those habits and those identities may or may not still fit. Some of them don't serve us well. For me, in my life, one of them is this idea that I need to fix everything. That I need to be able to fix everything. I have all kinds of tools specifically for fixing things. And it works out pretty well sometimes. It's a valuable lesson. It's one I learned from my dad because he grew up and his family didn't have a lot and they needed to be able to fix things, to take care of things. It worked out really well. Yesterday morning, my wife's car had some crazy weird problem. There was this pump that was turning on. The key was off. It was out of the ignition. It was completely off, but it was running on its own and running down the battery, and the car wouldn't start. So I went online, I searched Google, which is a real blessing if you're trying to fix things, because I never would have known what this was. But I looked it up, and it turned out it was just this small electrical relay. It was a sort of like a $20 part that you can kind of plug in and pull out the old one. It's buried beneath 4 layers of plastic, mind you, but it's nonetheless something I could do. So sometimes this idea that I need to be able to fix things, it serves me well, but not always, right? Sometimes it just means I'm keeping that old VCR that's broken, because how else am I going to play those VHS tapes? You know, they don't even sell VHS tapes anymore. And I don't know how to fix VCRs either, by the way. So I had to learn to get rid of that idea that I was responsible for fixing everything, that everything was worth fixing, that you couldn't throw anything away. Or maybe it's an idea you have. I know this happens to a lot of women. They learn from their mothers how to cook, and they learn that they should cook whether they love to do it or not, that they become the one who's responsible in their household, right? Maybe you don't need to be the one who's cooking all the time. Maybe that husband of yours knows more than just how to fire up a grill. You can give it up. It affects other people, right? I mean, I know that. But the thing is, we do this with our lives. We keep things long after they're useful, because getting rid of them is sometimes painful, because they require us to do what my dad is doing, to come to a new idea about who we are, and to accept that sometimes we made decisions in the past that were not the best decisions at the time. Or even if they were the best decisions at the time, that they're not serving us anymore. The times have changed, and we've changed, and we need to let it go. And rarely is it this obvious, but it turns out, actually, my family has another really interesting situation going on. My mom's father passed away more than a decade ago, and when he passed on, we inherited a lot of his stuff. Maybe this has happened to you. We inherited, amongst the other things that we inherited, my mom has his stamp and coin collection. Now, this is a guy who collected stamps for decades. Whole sheets. I'm not talking about like a little individual, I'm talking about you go to the post office and you buy a sheet of stamps. And so my mom went through and she went to stamp and coin shops to ask them about these stamps. And they said, we'll give you 50 cents on the dollar for their face value. For every 45-cent stamp you have, we'll give you 22 cents. The stamps were still there, and the most valuable thing that we could do with them was put them on a letter and send a greeting. And so, for a while now, we've been putting 3 and 4 stamps on every card we put out. My grandfather kept those stamps for decades, hoping they would be worth more someday. But instead, we just get to use them and have people wonder where we found them. And I'm really glad, too, actually, that he didn't have to make that discovery, because I imagine it would have been difficult. Because I know it's difficult to face up to that reality. That sometimes what it means is we've got to give up and get rid of those things that we thought were true but aren't anymore. We've got to get rid of the things that keep us from flourishing. And we got to open up space to let God flower in their place. So this holiday weekend, for those of you who are off today, or if you're off tomorrow, I hope you will go home. I hope you open up that closet or that attic or that shop one at a time. Don't do it all at once. One at a time. And start cleaning out the things that aren't feeding you anymore. You start with a plan. You find a place. Get a partner. It really helps. And then let your passion flow through. That's our calling. It's what God is calling us to do. To live fully, to hope greatly, to love deeply. And if your things no longer let you do those things, then maybe they don't need to be in your closet anymore.
Great job.